We will start with a React Native frontend provided to us by ChatGPT, with a few easy prompts and some debugging. But that is kind of old news, and I showed a more complicated example in my ChatGPT video a few months ago. In the AI department, Amazon has great offerings too, like Textract. With one simple call, we can send it photos of receipts and get it back with near-perfect text extraction. A few lines of code are enough to extract the items on virtually any receipt and get some meta information as well. To make things a little more accessible, we use a GPT 3.5 call and ask it to add emojis to the shopping list items. It works shockingly well. Then we have Amazon's newest no-code service, the Application Composer. We start out with a clean canvas and get 13 services to choose from. A really cool feature is that we can connect the whole thing to a local drive folder. Application Composer will then put all the infrastructure we move onto the canvas as a SAM template on our machine. All we need to do is run SAM deploy to get it into the cloud. For example, we're using an API gateway as entry point for our front end. We get extensive config options directly in Composer. We can set authorizers, define routes, various core settings, everyone's favorite security feature, and we can use an external YAML file to import an open API specification. Then we take two Lambda functions, one that will process our receipts and one that will deliver the individual shopping items to our front-end app. In order to use Textract in our receipts, we need to store them on S3. So we can simply drag everything onto the canvas and connect it. As a database, we choose a DynamoDB table. It would have been nice to have other options here, like RDS, but Application Composer is still pretty new, and maybe AWS will add it in time. When we take a close look at the configuration, we see that our IAM permissions have already been set up for us. Really convenient. Similarly, we could have connected our DynamoDB table and Lambda the other way around. Then we automatically get a trigger that will call our Lambda function if there's been changes made to the table. In terms of configuration, we have really everything here we need. Timing, many different programming languages, upload as a zip or container, we can change what our handler function is called, and we can of course also add Lambda layers. For instance, if we had some base code that we needed to be available without having to reload every time the Lambda gets called. The references to our table and S3 bucket are conveniently directly made available as environment variables that we can use in our Lambda code. Then all we need to do is run SAM deploy, answer a few questions, assert that we want to deploy even though we haven't set up any authorization, good call here Amazon, and our backend is deployed. If we go to CloudFormation, we can see the stack that was created, just like a regular CloudFormation template would. Now, let's look at what we got out of this and if it really works. We can either look at a plain list of all our items or choose a view group by individual shopping receipts. To scan a new receipt, we can go to the camera app and take a photo. On Android, it will automatically be recognized and we get the option to scan it. Adjust the edges to fit and we're ready to go. Back in our app, we hit the plus button and select the photo. This will make the call to our API gateway and start the information extraction process. I tried a number of different receipts from various stores that I found online. Here's a few examples. Pretty cool for just a few hours of coding. But we also want to see how this has been affected by inflation. So we'll ask ChatGPT to write us some sample data. We'll put that in our database with a small script that ChatGPT also happily provided. Now, if we scan our receipts quickly when we get them for a while, we can nicely see how inflation is making us all poorer, so we need to be more inventive with our coding to earn more money to make up for it. ChatGPT, as always, was really nice to get the boilerplate code. However, it still struggles with using packages correctly, remembering what variables were called, and code consistency in general. As George Hart said in a recent interview, the last thing anyone would need is close to correct code. Application Composer is a really neat tool, I have to say. If you just want to set up some serverless backend quickly, it's definitely going to be my new way to go about this from now on. It still has some quirks, like the UI being a bit annoying with the connections, and it will spit out error messages quite regularly, but I'm sure this will improve over time. When we might get conflicts, there's also the change inspector that in my experience sometimes worked really well and other times just bugs and doesn't apply to changes. Textract is really amazing for this particular use case. I've tried over 20 different receipt formats from the internet, and if the photo quality is decent, it will get the job done. Granted, sometimes it gets a letter wrong here and there, but overall it works really well. Okay, thanks for watching. You can find the code on GitHub, but remember, it's just a prototype and we haven't put in a lot of stuff, so please don't use it. And let me know in the comments if you want me to continue developing it and put in some authorization and some error handling, so it's not a harm to anyone. If you want to see more content like this, hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any new AWS features. This has been Flo from FloProDev.